Welcome everyone. Welcome to PitchCamp's weekly webinar series and growth marketing and sales leadership series. Very excited to have all of you today on a Friday evening. This is our 23rd webinar. Today we are starting a new segment focusing on customer success, and I'm very delighted to have Manoranjan Ingudam from Whatfix join us today. Welcome, Mano. Thank you so much for being part of PitchCamp.
Thanks a lot, Bimlesh, and really glad that you invited to this session.
This opportunity to talk a little bit on PitchCamp. So PitchCamp is an initiative that we started early this year with an intent to help people to share their ideas with the world better, with our focus on entrepreneurs and sales teams. And we also help early stage founders to pitch to their investors better using a story framework. We are very excited to announce our community partnership with SAAS Insider, which is also coming out with their first conference in India very shortly. So we are now expanding our community partnerships with other SaaS ecosystem community players as well. So we got a mix of entrepreneurs and customer success professionals who love, who want to hear a lot from you. Whatfix has had a stupendous growth over the last 4 years, and I'm sure Mano has a lot of anecdotes, stories, and experiences to share. So why don't we kick this off? So Mano, talk to us a little bit about your background on the days before you joined Whatfix. What were you doing, and how did you happen to join Whatfix? Customer success, is always a new thing for a young startup. So talk to us about your background, and then we'll jump into the whole topic of customer success.
Yeah. Hi. First of all, hi to everyone, and thanks for joining in. Yeah. So a little brief about before Whatfix. Interesting. I was like most of Bangalore into IT, developing, coding, making software, writing things on Java. Okay. So I was very passionate about writing codes which are without bugs and which are high performing. So that was what my initial journey was. So I was with Infosys, so working in a product called Finacle, and Finacle is a banking product used by quite a lot of banks around, whether it's ICICI or even global banks. So we're doing a lot of coding there. Learned about the whole product lifecycle, how product is developed, how it's maintained, how it's deployed. I went to customer side for deployment and so on. So that did give me a lot of foundation of how the product looks like, what is the lifecycle, more from a development perspective. Then I moved on again to another interesting company called Huawei around developing analytics products. So looking at data and trying to figure out, the trends and so on, so that, the business team can make more insights. So we developed the platform, and the business team designed what they want and did that. So after that is when I took the plunge of starting a company on my own, along with a couple of my friends and colleagues. So that's and that has been a huge learning, from a mindset of a product to going to the market and trying to figure out, what works, what doesn't work, and be able to iterate. So we were targeting a tough market, India market. Selling software in India is tough.
Right.
Not to discourage any of the people who are trying there right now, but that's what I realized. And more than selling, I think we have cracked, how to do that. But more than selling, I think the key thing which is, where I am focusing today is around, once you solve whether your software is being used effectively and it's solving the problem that it intends to solve. So that is where I think, the startup that I and my team were focusing around, we kind of did not have much success there.
Okay.
So that was huge learning in terms of how to start a business, and and how do you sustain it. So so then after that, Whatfix happened.
Right. Yeah, I remember. Our both of us were selling into the India market. You were targeting the beauty business. I was running my healthcare SaaS platform. We were also neighbors in HSR layout. So amazing, amazing recall on those days.
Yeah, then the whole thing came in, and obviously the founder of Whatfix and we were ex-colleagues, and then we always used to drink tea and coffee together, and ideate about what works, what doesn't work, and so on. So that was when Whatfix as a product also started getting some traction, and there's this problem within Whatfix on how do we make sure our customers are seeing the value, which is where I kind of did not do well in my startup.
Right.
So so that's the journey of customer success as far as the title is concerned. But then from then on, how do you solve customers' problem? How do you create value? That has been what I have been doing at Whatfix.
Amazing. So usage is such a critical part of a customer, irrespective of whether they are in SaaS or outside of SaaS as well, right? In the traditional worlds of software sales, it's always been the sales team run behind the customers to close a deal, and post closure of the deal, it's always been default the customer support that's there to solve reactive problems, right? So what has been so different in with customer success? Why has customer success become critical, especially for SaaS companies?
Yeah. So actually, so very interesting thing is the way the whole, I think how business has done has kind of changed in the SaaS thing. So earlier, right, like you have said, right, the sales team used to go and sell it. And then once it is deployed, then there is a maintenance contract traditionally. And there is one huge upfront payment for the deployment. And there is a maintenance contract, which is significantly lesser. Whereas in the so that what that would mean was there was a significant amount of investment which companies used to do for upfront in order to deploy any software, and then the maintenance is done over a period of time. Whereas in subscription kind of an economy where people are subscribing, whether it's monthly, annually, or or quarterly kind of a model, the upfront commitment by the customer is not very high, right? So it's so you are, in a way, the business model is like you are selling if it is quarterly, every quarter you are selling it. If it is an annual recurring, then it's every annual you are selling it. So what that means is that every time you're going to go and ask for a check, you are going to show value, telling that, hey, we are worth this check, right? So because of this model, the way the whole software movement has gone towards that, which becomes incredibly the way the way it was done earlier, that cannot sustain, right? And it will fail. So the role like customer success is a lot around trying to figure out for the customer, are we creating value? If we are not creating value, focus on how do we create value so that the renewal income that the company relies on is predictable, and it is something which you can use for growing the company.
So how different is this with customer support? Customer support has also been very closely related function, right? Though they primarily work on the reactive mode. But so talk to me about some differences between how you have seen customer success evolve, or in the industry, in Whatfix, versus the traditional mindset of customer support itself.
Yeah. So if you look at more around support, like, so let's look at suppose we didn't have a SaaS model. So let's look at the earlier model of maintenance, right? So it is reactive, where people create if they face an issue and how do we respond to them faster, and so on. So it's more like the customer is chasing the company in order to get things resolved. Whereas from a SaaS model, will it work? Sometimes it works, depending on the product, right? Some of the product, if it is highly, self-service, highly DIY, and, it's easy, being a little bit support oriented can still work, where obviously your support has to be very top notch, because you are going to say that a product is already providing this value, and then you will subscribe to that, right? So the model is a lot more reactive in support. Having said that, support plays a tremendous role in instilling confidence to any interaction a customer has, right? So I would say that success by itself can never stand without an incredible foundation of a support mechanism. So few things which we have learned at Whatfix is there are some basic I would say attributes we look at, not just from support but generally in any customer interaction. It's about how fast we are in our response. Okay? So if a customer sends an email, how fast are we able to respond? If a customer sends a query, how fast we are able to respond? All these things are very incredibly important as I would say culture, right?
Right.
And that is the first step towards a really good support mechanism, right? Even in the sales cycle, right? Sales cycle, somebody asks a question. If you are going to slip over it for the next 24 hours, these guys will think that, hey, this guy doesn't seem to be caring. But if somebody sends an email and you are getting a response within the next 30 minutes, you're like, and that is consistent over a period of time. It's not one time, but every time you send, you are demonstrating that. And you are demonstrating that not just in sales, but also in, when you raise it in support, you get the same response. When you talk to another person, you get the same response. So the customer experience throughout, from the whole DNA, the experience is, so something like that, I guess, is critical. And for support, that is the core foundation of it, right? So how fast are we able to respond? You may not be able to resolve all the queries, but it's very, very important for people to respond and acknowledge issues.
So when you say respond, it is not just the automated response of hey, thanks for dropping an email or raising a ticket, we'll get back to you soon. But it's actual one of the team members responding to that email, acknowledging that
yep,
I am assigned, or a team has got assigned. We will look into it and we'll get back to you.
Yeah. So when we are talking in the paradigm of a startup, I think it has to be a person who needs to respond, because we want to inculcate that culture and we want to inculcate that practice across, right?
Right.
So I don't think we are going to, unless it's going to be a B2C and massive number of tickets that are going to come in. But if it is like a B2B kind of a product, and you would want to increase your touch point, because you would like to build certain people to people relation which you want to leverage later, I think it's important that you try and use that opportunity to make it a manual interaction.
Right. Fantastic. So talk to us about how did your customer success journey evolve within Whatfix? So you came from a product and a core engineering background, right? And so what are some of the things that you had to learn? How did you put in a culture for customer success? What are the kind of values that you thought was important for customer success culture to be defined within Whatfix?
Yeah. So first of all, while I was told on the concept of why it is important, why we have to demonstrate value, that is important. But then the question now is how, right? How do we do that, right? So once you are bought into the idea, then how? So that's where I spend a lot of time just, learning, reading, talking to people, whoever is willing to talk to me, and and that's how I learned. And then there is also, thankfully, there's an amazing team at Whatfix, and it's not about what we learned, but it's also other my team members are learning and saying that, hey, this, why don't we try this concept, and so on. So it's a lot of learning across the teams, ideating, and then we experiment. And one more thing which I just want to bring out,
Sure.
especially in a startup, is about this culture of how do we empower our team members, how do we empower ourselves to take quick decisions, experiment it out, and then be able to quickly understand whether it's working or not. If it is not working, don't try to find fault, right? Move on, do something else, right? So the whole that accelerates the whole learning process. That accelerates people to take bolder decisions, bolder experimentation, and the company as a whole kind of benefits there.
Right. So it's taking the product iterating culture into rest of the organization as well, in each team.
Yeah. So I mean, even now, I mean, we are when we started, I think we must be around 15-member team when I joined the whole company. Now we are must be 350 kind of headcount now. Even now, we stress a lot on this particular part, right? How to, if we want, and we are directionally sure that, hey, this is in agreement. Our first thing is, let's start. How soon can we start? Okay. And what are some of the broad level parameters or metrics that we can see whether it works or not. So the whole thing is about just trying to get it hit on the ground, see if it works. Like, say, for example, you and I can always start talking, always idea telling that, hey, should we send a survey? Should the survey have 5 questions, 10 questions? We can keep on ideating for the next 2 weeks.
Right.
Now, but our approach is like, hey, we need a survey to be sent out. We want to see it, understand the pulse. Okay, so let's do it. Okay, I'm not sure what is the right question, but okay, let's start asking at least two or three customers,
right,
and see if we get the right perspective. Go with the survey. Then iterate over it. Maybe you will have to ask more questions. Maybe what if we ask this question? Then iterate it over a period of time. And if you do around 5 iterations, I'm sure that your process would have matured by then.
So now you have now started experimenting and seeing some results here. So from a customer satisfaction point of view, talk to us some of the outside of support. What are some of the key activities or roles and responsibilities does a customer success team at Whatfix do?
So when we started off, customer success manager was a catch-all. Okay, so it's like anything to do with customer is customer success team, and I think all the organizations kind of start off with that. It's just like maybe the founder were doing everything, right? When when a startup happens, the founder is doing everything. It's just like that. Anything to do with customer success manager does everything. Support, tickets, renewal, everything they will do that. Right? Onboarding. Okay. If it is not very technical, then even the implementation, configuration, and so on. So that's how we started. We also started in a very similar way in terms of initially our product is a little bit technical, so we started hiring people who are a little bit technical as a customer success manager, so that they can understand the product, they can help in or more on the implementation and support thing. And then we started iterating over more proactive steps. What are the things like how do we do kickoff, how do we do reviews, what kind of reviews should we have, like right now we have pretty strong practice called executive business review, but then in order to reach that, we have done a lot of iterations. Even now we are constantly trying to see what kind of executive business review is impactful, right, for the right for different kind of audiences.
All right.
So each of these practices which are proactive, we started outlining things things around that. A little dependent on the type of the product. Our product, as Whatfix is a product, it's a high-touch product. It's a product which requires discussion around solutioning. It's not something which is more like DIY, product-led kind of growth. There is a lot of involvement or consulting that the CSM also needs to start learning. How do I understand customers' problem, and then how do I make sure that maybe our product can do maybe quite a number of things, but for his problem statement, certain features and certain solutions will work better. So how do we consult him to make sure that the use case is appropriately solved? And then in the end, when I meet the sponsor and do an executive business review down the line, I will be able to understand his problem and correlate the value easily in the executive business review, right? Because in the end, coming back to the question of how do we demonstrate the value to the right budget holder or the sponsor, telling that, hey, our solution is making sense for your company and your organization. How do we say that? So that is the core theme, and we would like to do that. And that starts from understanding the company or the person who is championing our solution. What is his goal? What does he want from this solution? And then how does it align to the company's goals? So if we understand that, then the narration becomes a little bit easier. True. So something like that, we do, and then it has evolved a lot. Like, so we have now, earlier we started with, like I said, a catch-all kind of a role, and then now we have customer success manager, a lot focused on value, understanding, consulting, and then we have the separate support team now looking at the L1, all the L1 channels and responding, and their KPIs are a little different. And then we have the whole advocacy. And one thing I would like to touch as outcome for success is, okay, one outcome is obviously from a retention. Is your customer at the end of the term, whether it's quarterly or yearly, are they willing to give you the check? That is the number one outcome. Second outcome is, how well are you able to cultivate advocates, right?
Okay.
How many of your customers are willing to go out of their way to say that, hey, your solution is amazing because it has so much made a difference in my life, right? So how many advocates can you get out from your customer base? And those are the growth, those are the guys who are going to help in the growth of the company. So
right,
yeah, so that is, again, we stress a lot of focus also around how do we have this whole journey of right from a customer spoke to a champion to an advocate, a layered approach. How do we go about it? So that is, again, a very critical outcome. And then another is when we started off, again, we have a sales team which is focused on direct sales, but the account management as such, doesn't exist. So our CSM team used to find opportunities. If there are, the low-hanging fruits, we used to convert and then, generate more and more revenue from the existing things. Okay. But as we become more and more focused, we do not want to dilute the value proposition with the selling and negotiation. So we have moved that out role from the customer success function.
Oh, okay. Interesting. There are quite a few organizations that still look at, so in SaaS you have this land and expand, right? So land is primarily taken care of by the sales team, and expansions are primarily driven by, customer success in coordination with account managers. So what you are saying is, you have moved away from linking the account manager and customer success together and having them responsible for revenue expansion, but focusing customer success purely on adding value and looking at opportunities where there is expand. And once an expansion opportunity is there, you pass it on to the account manager to take it forward.
Yeah. So Yeah, we started. I mean, we started with the dual role. The CSM initially, I think we're back in 2018. We have CSM also looking at opportunities, their work and conversion, and so on. So there's a split focus. The CSM is now a little bit, should I focus on conversion? Should I focus on retention, right? Or value creation? There's a little bit of a thing. So then we moved to a model where we form a pod. Now, one of the pod is a member is account manager. You can probably call as a pod lead. And one of his core KPI was around account management. But the rest of the CSM in the pod is not focused on thing. But if they find opportunities, they give it to this particular pod lead and say that, hey, you do whatever you want to do, but we are not going to go and do any, contracting negotiation and so on. We are not going to do that. So that's how we start at the second stage. Okay. And at the third stage, we said that, hey, sales, because there are some logos where we actually can run really fast if we have a person who is focused around, day in, day out around how do I go to the next, department, how do I go to the next, application and so on. So it's no longer a hobby, right? It's a day job whereas the CSM is going to do it as a hobby, right? Right. So which is where the account manager comes in and says that, okay, they will just focus. But if there are something which is there, the CSM kind of passes it on.
Fantastic. I think we'll just take a pause here. We'll look in for any questions.
So how do you measure ROI for CS teams? Okay, so I'm assuming that for the team for customer success, how do you, from an organization standpoint, not from the customer standpoint? Okay, so that's what I understood from the question. So in SaaS, I think there is something called a gross margin. So you have to look for the gross margin. Generally, I think it's we try to look at around 80% gross margin. Can we maintain that? So that will give you a good indication. If you are somewhere around, even if you are between 75 to anything above 75 will be, I think, a good gross margin. So that is how you can probably look at it, and that will kind of validate or justify the investment on customer success. The lifetime, is the customer lifetime increasing? Customer lifetime value increasing, and so on. So that will give that.
Fantastic. Next question is from Shashi. Metrics that you measure customer success teams.
Okay, core outcome that we look at is the growth. Earlier, like I said, during the evolution, we started with net retention as a metrics, but then we slowly started focusing a lot around growth, trying to make sure that we are able to hold our customer together. Okay, so that becomes our core thing. So what is our growth retention? And we look at it quarterly. Ours is ARR, so we look at the retention from an operational perspective. Quarterly we look at our retention and see where we are and so on. So that is I think one of our single most important metrics. Then we also look a lot around NPS. NPS is one of our core
metrics
practice which we deploy in our organization, and we have found it incredibly useful and valuable to understand the customer sentiment, and also we have done a little bit of change on the way we ask questions. Again, this is a little bit, like I said, iteration. We started with a set of questions, and we find that and then tweak it a little bit to see the response rate. Is it so after some iterations, we kind of hit on the right combination, and that has been really useful for us to understand our customer, their feedback, and also act upon it, right? So we are able to kind of mobilize our teams, not customer success team, but product team, support team, and the sales team around those particular insights that has come from the NPS. So NPS, then GRR, then we have and one more on the advocacy part is something which, depending on your platform, you can look at it, but we focus a lot around are we getting enough reviews on certain review platform like G2 and so on. So we have focused on it, and it is yielding the results today. We are leaders in most of this review platforms, and yeah, so and then case studies and customer advocacy and so on. So that is the I would say from a metric standpoint. But then we have final leading I would say KPIs for the CSMs, which we kind of look at, like say our EBR, executive business review. Are we doing it on time? Is how much is the coverage? So those are a little bit leading, and sponsor engagement. Are we doing enough sponsor engagement? From a product perspective, we track certain metrics. Is our usage high, and so on. So those are a little bit more finer thing, but broad level, I would say top three, if I were to say that: gross retention, NPS, and then maybe on the advocacy part, pick and choose something. I think we chose in terms of our focus. We wanted to do a lot around G2 reviews initially, so that's what we picked. But now, our focus has changed, so we added not just G2, but we want case studies. We want customer to talk on our various platforms, so we added that.
Right, fantastic. So CSMs are empowered in terms of incentivizing customers to do this, to go this extra step from a budgetary point of view. We've always seen poor response rates from customers when you send out surveys, when you ask them for G2 reviews. So common practice is to send out Amazon vouchers and so on and so forth, right?
We do not do directly to the customers, but to our customer success managers we do. But it's a little bit, I would say, initially, if you are able to do well, so like the NPS, when we send out an NPS and customer response, and it goes into a black hole, nobody responds. Then next time you send out, they are not going to write back, right? So you need to ensure that the feedback loop is there, and then there is a follow up to make sure that you take action. So that's where a lot of times I see NPS is not effective and so on. But if you do not put in enough effort to make the practice useful, then I don't think it will be effective. Right. But if you are going to make sure that the feedback loop is there, you are, your teams are focused to take actions. I think it becomes an incredible tool.
Got it. I had one question before we jump into questions from there. When you say executive business review, it's the business review between the CSM and the sponsor, right?
Yeah.
It's not an internal review within the CSM team and with your leadership team.
No. It is with the. So there's also an interesting thing, right? In the industry, a lot of people generally use the term quarterly business review, right?
Right.
So every quarter, you're supposed to do a business review with your stakeholders. But then at Whatfix, we said that, let's do executive business review because we want the executive sponsor from the customer side to be part of it. Until and unless the executive participates in this review, we do not call it as executive business review.
Right. So moving on, next question is from Chaitanya. The value add that customer success team provides to its clientele, should the focus be more quantifiable value add or on the growth and maturity of the relationship?
So the question is around whether we should be focused around success criteria, which are very quantifiable, or should it be more relationship based, right? So not a very easy answer to say, but for customer success, I think the value becomes the core critical. So how will you be able to articulate the value, right? And when you articulate the value, how you articulate the value is also important, right? So that's where the relationship aspect comes in, right? So it's I've seen, customer success managers probably doing a lot of hard work, but if the relationship quotient is not that high, the customer doesn't react, in a way they should ideally, given all the, value that the CSM and the product is given. So
Right.
relationship is important and it should be there, but the value is I would say the foundation. But having said that, I have seen cases where the CSMs have incredible relationship and they are able to turn around in difficult situations, because there will be always some scenarios where product doesn't go live during some time during your runway that you have given, and due to maybe customer doesn't have the bandwidth, or there are some challenges which happen. But if your relationship is strong, you will be able to weather that. But you will never be able to weather that if there is zero value for the second year or the third year. So
Correct.
It will take you only to some distance, but without value, I don't think it can sustain.
Next one is from Vipul from DataWeave. In your opinion, how important is customer success in GTM strategy for a new market?
For new market, okay. So I'm assuming Vipul, when you say new market, I'm assuming that you are already present on maybe a certain geos and you are going to a new geo, or is that okay? Got it. Specifically for a new market, whether for sure, I think if you have few customers who are who can speak and so on, that is incredibly powerful. Any new market, you are trying to build that what do you call credibility, right? You are trying to establish credibility. You are trying to, and the shortest way to credibility, I mean, you may give n number of demos, but if the customer says that, hey, this is the kind of value these guys have provided, this is the kind of use case they have solved, that there is nothing like it. And as a matter of fact, a lot of our teams, like I said, within our customer success team, we have the advocacy and the customer marketing team, and then we have from the lead generation perspective, the whole lead generation marketing team that is there, and both content, event, and outbound. So we work our team within customer success and these teams work very closely together, so that they will be able to bring out maybe one customer. Always from this, the lead gen team is like, hey, can we have one customer persona talk on this event, and they will bring in all the prospects and in certain contracting stages and so on as a mechanism to accelerate the whole sales.
Fantastic. Another one from Mohit. Quick tips around building customer centric culture.
Yeah, it's an incredible I think thing that needs to be done right from the start. And generally, I've seen it will be, because when it is a startup, it will be the leaders who will drive it, and the leaders need to exhibit that culture, because at the time you will not have a culture document, you will not have a team who is going to say that, hey, this is our culture and so on. So when you are a team of probably still probably around 100 employee kind of a company, I think it has to be just top down. You exhibit on the floor, you exhibit on your decisions that you make, and so on, right? That's how I think in Whatfix also, that's a similar kind of approach, and we believe in that.
Right.
But as we scale, I think there has to be a mechanism to enforce that. So that's where, culture document in your KPI, and then, how do we kind of, set it, even if it is probably, 5% of the performance that you are going to, be part of it. You still ask your team members to tell, what is that you have done in this quarter to make the customer experience better? What did you do this quarter? So a few questions we ask. There is some people write well, some people doesn't write well, but at least we empower them to think, if I have not done this time, next time, what should we do?
True.
So those are a few, I would say, hacks that we have done. But again, all those things will never work until and unless the leader exhibits those attributes of customer first, right? So, I mean, we have this whole thing where, even if a ticket comes, some ticket, one customer ticket comes, if our CSM or the support doesn't pick up, somebody else will pick up, because we need to respond to the customer.
Correct.
So that is what, that is the first thing that always comes, right?
Yeah, that's so fundamental.
Yeah, that's a fundamental. So we kind of try to even design our tools so that it becomes more transparent and so on. So yeah, not a very easy thing to do, but I think it helps a lot when you are when you have a customer first kind of a culture in a stage of around maybe around 150, 200, and then subsequent growth. I think it will help.
Another question: what should be the ideal customer success strategy in a SaaS startup?
Ideal will be, I mean, it's a little, I would say, subject to the product. But having said that, the question remains the same. The question is your product solving the right problem, and is that problem enough for the customer to give you the next check? Okay. So that will be the same kind of a question. But the product, the way the customer success, I would say the team is designed will be a lot different from how the product is. Like I said, right? If it is a low touch kind of a model, then your product has to be really aligned towards that thought process, right? It's about how easy it is. There has to be metrics around, the value from a product standpoint and so on. Right. Or if it is more around solutioning, more a little bit high touch model, then say let's take an example of Whatfix. Now Whatfix, okay, I just will kind of do a small 1 minute pitch about Whatfix. So Whatfix is a digital adoption platform on top of any web applications, where typically companies would face problem of end users adopting certain software that you have, like maybe you guys have built a new features where nobody knows about it. So how do you make sure that you are adopting? Now the problem that we are solving is now either your team, the ISVs can spend the engineering effort to solve the adoption problem, or they can focus their energy on solving their core product problem, right? So our value proposition is we take that away from you guys, and then you can design it very easily by your product team instead of spending the engineering resources. That is more from the ISV, but more from enterprise. Enterprise spends humongous amount of money for making sure that the whole team is the different business processes within the whole enterprises are streamlined. So whether it's a sales team or whether it's the HR team and so on, so various platforms are being used. So we help in making sure teams understand software, they use it appropriately. So that's what Whatfix does. So what it means for us is we need to now, since this is a platform which can be used for solving n number of problems, our customer success manager needs to really understand what problem and what persona we are talking about. I mean, when we talk to a product manager, their thought process is different. Their thought process is around, hey, how beautiful is this particular UI, and can I do a customization by pixel level and so on, right? So their thought process is a lot different. Whereas a person from L&D team would not care much about that, right? He's more about, hey, what kind of content, what kind of sentence, and so on. So depending on that, we need to give the right experience and the value proposition depending on the persona that we talk and the problem that we solve. So the strategy for any SaaS startup I would say is the first point that I said. So it will be the success. The meaning of success will be a lot dependent on who your customer is, what segment you are, targeting, and it might change over a period of time. So your company will also evolve and say that, hey, this segment is not working. We'll have to work to the next segment and so on. So yours as a customer success strategy, so you have to be able to iterate very, very fast and be able to understand, what is success meant and what segment works, what doesn't work, and so on. Be able to do that. Yeah, broadly, key takeaway will be, iterate fast on what success means for your customer.
Right. Fantastic. We'll take the last question here. What's your tool stack for customer success, both from a ticketing point of view and for your whole team to be successful?
We have used, quite a lot of tickets on the way. Email being one of the most constant one. Yeah, and then after that will be we used certain ticketing tools. We started with, if I remember, Freshdesk. Now we are on Zendesk. Then we use internally, Jira a lot. Then customer success platforms. We have, initially we dabbled with the same sales platform. We were using initially Pipedrive, and then we moved to Salesforce. But after Pipedrive, I remember exploring so much about Pipedrive at that stage just to make it work for the experiment data that I want, so that I can do analysis. But then it has reached certain point where it is no longer able to support. Right. Then we moved to more more analysis of the existing platforms. Then we started using Client Success. There is that's one of the platform, and so on. So then what else do we use? We use a lot of call online calls. I guess that's more or less. Maybe I'm sure there will be some more which I'm not remembering right now.
Fantastic. I think before we wrap up, one last question, Mano. Any anecdote or any unique aha moment in your entire customer success journey with Whatfix so far that's been a game-changing moment, for you and for the team that you'd like to share?
Yeah, be very focused on, I would say, customer feedback. So the prime thing which I think has been instrumental or helps us understand a lot more is how do we make sure the customer feedback comes faster and not when it's going to churn, but earlier, right? So how do you build that? So that has been the thing. So it can be a combination of a lot of things, right? So it can be a combination. So we do NPS. I've already talked about it, but then we not only just do NPS, but we also do customer interviews. We go to customer, face to face. I remember taking a bag and then, just traveling from a completely unknown city, from Chicago to some remote places, just to talk to the customer and see how they are deploying, how they are using it, right? So that feedback is very critical, and it will help you to understand what is success means for your customer.
Amazing. Great insights and great thoughts, Mano. Very thankful to you for sharing these on this platform. I'd like to thank each one of you in the audience. Lovely participation and engagement. Thank you so much. Thanks once again, everyone, for joining in. Thank you, Mano. Lovely conversation with you today.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining in.
Fantastic. So.